an entire line on an Excel balance sheet is cut and they're gone from their job. That's when they start networking, but by that time it's too late.
It's never a good idea to send in extra money to your mortgage company, and I know this is a very pioneering idea.
With the economy taking a downturn, everyone is worried about the R word. Today we'll tell you how to recession-proof your job and your house, how to keep them even in tough economic times. First up, Dianne Gubin is here. She's founder of Tech Exec Partners, a staffing firm. Great to have you here today, Dianne.
Thank you, Greg.
So what do you see in the job market? What's going on out there?
Well, as a staffing specialist, I've placed people in Fortune 500 companies, fast growth companies, government institutions, associations. I've really seen what it takes for a hiring manager to find the right person and for a candidate to find the right job. The job market, it's a little tougher now.
Tough.
Yes. You know why?
Why?
Because I think there's a disconnect between people who are candidates being able to actually get into the hiring manager in a company.
Now, is this related to the economy itself, or just that it's hard to get in the door?
Economy. Yes, correct. There's been a lot of downsizing, right-sizing, outsourcing going on. But even worse, I think the internet has actually made it harder to find a job. And part of that is people go in and they sit down for 8 hours a day trolling the job boards, sending in resumes into big black holes, and they can't find the right person in a company to get their resume to who could actually hire them. And
so what do you do in that case then? If you're looking for a job, how do you find the right person? And if you've got a job, how do you keep it during the recession if you're worried that you're going to, well, what kinds of things should people be aware of?
Well, the best way to answer both questions is the key to me is establishing a strong professional network. I have a book coming out called Power Ladder, and it's a woman's guide to career success. And what we found is that people don't establish strong enough professional networks. And what that means is it's not just who you know within your company, but it's really a matter of getting out there and making as many contacts as possible across your company and across your industry.
And you've been very active in all kinds of associations and getting out there. And was it most people wait until it's too late, until they're looking for the job or need a job, instead of when they've got the job?
Exactly. I've spoken to so many managers, especially senior managers, who are at the top of their careers, and they've been so busy and so focused on their job inside their corporation that they don't get out and network enough. And then what happens is when they're cut because an entire line on an Excel balance sheet is cut and they're gone from their job, that's when they start networking. That's when they start showing up at these groups and associations and trying to build a network. But by that time, it's too late.
Too late. So again, for the people who have a job, what are some things that, well, first of all, how can you tell if your job's in jeopardy? What should you be looking out for?
Keep your ears to the ground. Sometimes you might read about it in the paper. You might hear about it in the news. Just listen.
Companies going bankrupt.
Right, companies going, oh, that might be a sign right there.
Yeah.
Listen for rumors inside the corporation. Really keep your ears open at the water cooler as to what's happening within your corporation. It's important to me, especially if you're in a bigger company, to get to know as many people across the organization as possible. Be visible, take on extra projects, make yourself indispensable, especially today where less is more. Take on as much as you can.
Do as much as you can.
Yes.
So don't just show up and try to do the minimum, really put yourself into it.
Yes, I think if you show up and do the minimum, you're the one that's out the door first.
At the door first.
Right.
Another point, I was reading some of your information earlier on your website, and you say, think like an owner, or
right.
pretend. Why is that important, or what does that mean?
Well, especially if you're in a smaller or mid-sized corporation where dollars are really important, think like an owner. What is it going to take to drive more business into the organization? How can everyone be more customer service oriented? How can you be the one so that the person on the other end of the phone who's talking to you wants to keep working with your company as opposed to the receptionist? I had someone at the front desk once. She was terrible. She only lasted a few days because you just listened to her communication skills. And it wasn't that she was a bad talker or communicator. It was just that it was kind of like a dull fed when you talked to her. So believe me, she didn't last very long.
Didn't set the right tone for the.
Right.
I think of somebody, I won't say who, but when I call their office every time, the woman, actually maybe I think she isn't there anymore. But when I would call, it was always like really meek and mild. You could barely hear her talking. And I thought, wow, that's the image they're sending to the outside world is this woman that I always want to ask her to speak up, or I'd say, oh, I think we have a bad connection. Like,
right, that front desk person is extremely critical, whoever answers the phone. In fact, if you're calling into a service organization and you're getting one of those, high voicemail circles, don't you usually just hang up? You can't find the right person. So think
that's
like
another, the story about the awful voicemail these days, getting stuck in the loop.
Right.
And
Right. Think like an owner. Take on more. Think about, if it was your company, how you would handle your job so that you're the most effective you can be.
Okay. Continue your education.
Yes, extremely important. If your company offers continuing education, take advantage of it. Go get that college degree, the master's degree, go get sales training. If you're an accounting person, go get that CPA degree. Do whatever it takes to keep your education going. Today, it's more you, Inc. You have to take control of your career. You have to take control of your destiny.
Be proactive.
Be proactive. If your company doesn't pay for the continuing education, just sign up anyway. Decide how you're going to do it, finance it, put on a credit card, do whatever you take, because
an investment in yourself.
Absolutely. These are skills that follow you through your career.
Well, and you also say keep your resume updated.
Yes, especially if you're hearing any rumors at the water cooler. Keep your resume updated at all times. It's very easy if you're sitting in a long-term job to forget the projects that you've worked on and how much you've saved the company by being involved in whatever you've been doing. So keep your resume updated constantly, because you never know when you're going to need it. In fact, there are people sometimes in a major corporate, very oftentimes someone's a little bit nervous. I'll tell them, post your resume out on the job boards. You don't actually have to troll through the boards looking for a new job, but put your resume out there and be findable.
So even just kind of keep feelers out there, or
keep feelers out there. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can put your resume up there blind so that they can't see, whoever is searching for you can't see your name. It goes with a long link.
so they know you're looking.
Right. And you don't have to put the name of your company either. You don't have to put Time Warner Cable. You could put major entertainment company, and somebody would know you're in the right industry, but not necessarily know exactly where you're working.
Now, you also have some advice, so even for just, above and beyond some of the job skills per se, like, the education and taking, on projects and stuff, but you even talk about some of the basic people skills, I think, are like be low maintenance and...
Yes, be low maintenance. Well, that goes back to the receptionist at the front desk. That same person, again, who only lasted a short time with me, nothing that this woman did was right. All of her work had to be double checked. She was very high maintenance. Just from
Meaning,
a management
can you give us
point
an
of view.
example of what that means, high maintenance, for the people who...
Being high
We may think of it in our social life, but let's say at the office.
Well, it's the same thing in the office. Somebody who brings all their personal issues to work. You're sitting there, you're listening to them having their personal phone calls when you're walking past. Everybody in the organization is aware when you bring your issues into the office. So be sure to check all your problems at the front door.
Do you find that these days that there's less of a barrier, that maybe in the past people had their work life and their social life, but these days that people feel more comfortable discussing their personal life? Or
I think the internet has made you more accessible.
Well, speaking about the internet, any thoughts on that? I mean, the MySpace and the Facebook and all of that.
Well, most certainly you have to be careful what's out there, especially if you're in the job market, because whatever you put out there, as we know, it follows you. Someone can just do a Google search, find you, pull you up. But on the other hand, all these social networking sites, they are great ways to really work your network. LinkedIn is a great one for professionals to connect with each other. People always ask me to join LinkedIn. Truly, I don't have the time to sit there and go through my database and say, hi, join me on LinkedIn. But truly, for people who are interested in finding a job,
and you think people do get jobs through those kind of...
Absolutely. There's a number of them out there.
And what about when we were talking something about the people skills being low maintenance, but I assume there's also the sense of not just discussing personal problems, but being somebody that my theory always is that people want to work with people they like or be around.
Exactly.
That.
Goes back to that Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Everybody should definitely read that. You get more flies with honey than with vinegar. Just be likable. Remember, if you're not the one that people want on a project, you're going to be the one that's out there looking for a new job. So do whatever it takes to be cordial, to help other people. Very oftentimes in these big projects or in any project, somebody needs help. Be the one that's there to support others. Cross-train, that's another thing. Cross-train if you can. If you're in accounting, let's say, learn how to do sales. If you're in sales, you might not want to learn how to do accounting, but maybe you learn how to do some marketing. So figure out how to make yourself what I call a superstar.
Yeah, because I think people are always thinking vertical in companies, that they want the promotion to go up higher, but sometimes even the lateral move could be a good
Very
career move
oftentimes,
or
a lateral
strengthen.
move will get you to that higher space. The people who are most successful are the ones who are able to move across divisions and really see how an entire organization runs.
So any other thoughts or words of advice for people who may be looking or think they may be looking soon?
Yes, get your resume ready. And if you're not comfortable writing a resume, work with a professional resume writer. Get the resume as close as possible to match whatever jobs you're looking for. The keywords are most important right now. You have about 10 seconds when someone pulls your resume up on a screen for someone to decide if they even want to continue and have a conversation with you or not. Everybody who is looking at resumes is flooded with resumes for every single job. So if there's a position that you're looking for, you want to look as much as you can like that job. Literally compare the job, compare your resume, and make sure that the keywords that are most important to that position are as close to the top of your resume as possible.
So there are some specific guidelines as far as formatting or things that people should be aware of? I mean, should you have an objective at the top that just spells it out, or what?
It really depends upon the position that you're going to and where you are in your career. So if you're looking for a director level position, you might want to say, director level candidate seeking blah, blah, blah. However, if you're more administrative or general or not really sure what you want to do, you might not want to put that on there. It's one-on-one specific.
And they always say keep the resume short. Is that?
Well, actually, these days I think resumes are getting longer. It used to be 2 pages was the tops, but now you see resumes 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages. If your experience is more than 20 years old, you might want to condense it. So that's less is more, because again, it's the first page which is the most important on a resume.
First page, yeah. Right. I think 5 or 6 almost sounds like overkill.
It does, but some people have that kind of experience. But again, the most important thing is establishing a professional network. That's really the key to getting hand-walked into wherever you'd like to go next. If you're looking at a company or considering a company, think about who you know who works in that company. Or again, look on some of these social networking sites and see who you know who might know somebody else who can hand-walk you into that firm.
Well, thank you very much, Dianne Gubin from Tech Exec Partners. Up next, mortgage lender Randy Wright will tell you how to keep your home out of foreclosure. We'll be right back. And we are back. Joining me now is Randy Wright. He's a branch owner of Benchmark Mortgage in Beverly Hills. Great to have you here today, Randy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, foreclosures are so much in the news these days. It seems like that's all I'm reading when I pick up the paper. What are you seeing in the housing market?
Well, nationally, the foreclosure rate is hitting about 2% nationally across all states, and and by 2%. The end of the year, it could hit up to 1 million homes.
1 million homes.
Yeah, it depends on what Congress does. They've had a couple good legislative things go through in the last couple months. They've got one more going on right now, hopefully to really help out. That could stem that back from 1 million to a much smaller number, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So when you say up to 2%, what is a normal rate historically?
Right around 1% or a half. It's really much lower.
So it's almost twice the trend over time or more.
And basically what we have going on right now is a downward spiral of prices on homes. And what we need is Congress to enact some legislation to stop that downward spiral of homes, of the prices, so that people can actually refinance and stuff like that. So hopefully that's one thing they kind of follow through with and make happen in the near future.
So you think Congress does need to intervene to do that? We can't just let the market play out and go where it's going to...
That self-perpetuating downward spiral will continue. Senator Barney Frank right now from Massachusetts actually is trying to have a vote on some legislation next week. Hopefully it happens. Basically it would go out and say, okay, here's $300 billion.
$300 billion?
Well, to ensure and to expand the FHA loan program, which we've all heard about. So basically it would expand that, and it would basically say, okay, countrywide, if you want to keep a hold of this loan, you have to reduce the principal from $500,000 to $400,000, number one, and then number two, we'll come in and guarantee it, give the client a 6% interest rate and call it a day, and then they won't go into foreclosure, and then that won't cause everyone else to go into foreclosure, and it'll put a floor on the market, and it'll be a dramatic help. So hopefully that happens in the next 30 days and happens, and people can start taking advantage of it by June or something like that.
And you do think that'll help, that's the answer to the problem?
I think that would be the final huge piece of the equation that would help. That would pretty much handle everything. I mean, now that, interest rates have kind of stabilized and all that, So.
And well, California, of course, is especially hard hit, the worst in the country for foreclosures. And But I've heard the stories about a neighborhood in Ohio where we were talking about this before, where when the homes went into foreclosure, the banks couldn't even get any money for them because people were going, like there was probably a whole abandoned neighborhood of like 800 homes. People were, in fact, I just saw another article in the paper about this the other day. People were taking the wiring, the roofing. By the time they were done, there was no, and gangs
Copper
were
piping and all that stuff.
There was nothing left, and they couldn't even. So the house went into foreclosure, but the banks couldn't even sell it, and So you wonder what the point was of going into foreclosure because they didn't get anything for the house. They said it would have cost more to fix up the house so they could sell it than it was worth at that point.
Yeah. So worst case situation for homeowners and society and the government is a foreclosed upon property. And there's several things you can do to avoid foreclosure. We can get to those, but yeah, I mean, especially in markets like Ohio, Michigan, there was dramatic overbuilding by everyone wanted to be a developer, so they go out and start building 100 or 500 houses, and then cities and states weren't really controlling that. So then you have states where there's not an increase in population. So then you have, once a house goes into foreclosure, it's like, well, does anyone really want it? Maybe not.
So what can you do if you think you may be, if you think you're going to have a problem, or you're going to have a problem?
Right. Obviously foreclosure is worst case scenario, and there's several things leading up to that you can see the warning signs and hopefully not go there. Number one, of course, if you're even considering refinancing, now or later, and you're like, well, I don't know if I should do it, definitely do it now. Because, if we have like we were talking earlier, potentially an economy that might go into recession, the number one thing that hurts values of homes is people losing jobs. And once you lose the value of your house, you can't refinance. So definitely go ahead and refinance now because we don't know where property values are going. And interest rates, that's not really the question. The question is whether you can refinance, you need to refinance now so that you don't have a problem later. Kind of number two is if you think you're ever going to, this is kind of a pioneering idea. It's like, I know your parents and my parents said, look, go ahead and send in extra money to our mortgage, pay down that mortgage as fast as possible. That's the really smart thing to do financially. Whether you're secure in your job or you think you're secure in your job or not, it's never a good idea to send in extra money to your mortgage company, and I know this is a very pioneering idea, but for two major reasons. So number one, go ahead and get a 30-year fixed and make that minimum payment for the full 30 years. And here's why. Because if you have an extra $500 per month, the concept is basically simple interest versus compound interest. So if you have a mortgage at 6%, or you could take that money and put it in an investment fund and earn 6% per year, you'd think, well, that's equal. So maybe just pay it on the mortgage, but it's not. Because your mortgage is actually simple interest, interest rate. And then if you send it into an IRA, that's compounding interest. So you definitely want to send that extra $500 into an IRA or call your certified financial planner.
So better to invest.
Yeah, just because of that one simple concept of simple versus compound interest. Additionally, and this is one thing our parents didn't really think about, it's like pay off your mortgage, is when you send in that extra money per month, that money that's at risk until you pay down the mortgage from whatever to zero. That money's at risk because as soon as, like we talk about a recession, if you get laid off or you become disabled, and all of a sudden if you can't pay your mortgage, even if you paid the mortgage down from $500,000 to $50,000, they're like, oh, well, you've missed 6 months, we're taking your house. It's like, well, that's not fair, but it is, they'll take it. Versus if you invest that $500 per month in an IRA, 5 years from now, that might be worth $75,000. And then 5 years from now, if you get laid off, you can start taking that money and pay down the monthly mortgage and make it's just a much better, safer approach to your mortgage and finances. So that's a huge one that I think most people don't think about because our parents are always like, oh, pay off your mortgage very fast, right?
Yeah, that's it. So is now a good time to buy? I mean, with all these homes going into foreclosure?
It depends regionally. It depends on what region, what state, and what area you're in. Absolutely, in general, it is a great time to buy because prices, are down. Number one, that's always thinking logically, that's a great time to buy. And then mortgage rates are also down. So just by those two concepts, absolutely. When was it not a good time to buy? Was a year or two ago when, everybody was, our parents and grandparents were jumping in, buying houses for 100% financing with 580 FICOs and stated income. When everybody was doing it, that's when you don't want to be doing it. But when, by and large, financially, when not a lot of people are doing something, that's sometimes a good time to be buying or investing in something.
I guess the fear though is how far it might go down. I mean, will it keep going down after you buy, or?
Exactly, and again, one of the solutions to that is hopefully they do enact that legislation this summer that I was talking about. And as long as our economy stabilizes and that maybe last piece of legislation happens, it is absolutely a great time to buy in regional markets.
Any idea how long we're looking for this downturn?
Just
when
the
it's gonna get
potential
better?
recession or housing
I
recession.
mean, are we talking years, or is this months or years or several years? Or?
Depending on what Congress does in the next couple of months, I mean, I think a big part of the country could have a housing downturn pricing-wise through next year, maybe the following year, maybe 2010. Then I think it will be done. You know, if they approve the legislation, especially areas in California, you know, New York and some of the populous states, I think the downturn will kind of flatten out and bottom out this year.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Randy
Thank you
Wright
so
from
much too.
Benchmark Mortgage in Beverly Hills. Thanks, everybody. We will be right back after this commercial. And I must close the show. And we are back with real estate broker Jesse Kalsi. Joining me now, he is the author of the book, The Power of Home Numbers. Pleasure to have you here today, Jesse.
Thank you for having me.
So what advice do you have for people who are going into foreclosure or may think they could be going into foreclosure?
I'm an astronumerologist and also a real estate broker, and I use astronumerology to promote my business and help my clients maximize on their equities. Now, astronumerology, let me tell you quickly, it's about astrology and numerology. Astrology is the study of planets, and numerology is about numbers.
Okay.
So we combine the two to attain a better flow of energy, and that is when buying and selling homes.
So this is a little different than your traditional approach to real estate, but you find that this works for your clients, that you've actually had success?
Oh, absolutely. It's been very successful. I've been a broker for 15 years now, and I've used astronumerology very successfully to maximize the equities of my clients.
So one of the things I noticed you mentioned is something of the power, well, again, indeed, the title, The Power of Home Numbers. What is so important about the house number out front? What does that mean?
Oh, house number is absolutely crucial. Now, see, numbers, basic numbers go from 1 to 9, and each number has a planet that is associated with it. Say, for example, number 1 is Sun, or number 9 is Mars, or number 5 is Mercury, and the other numbers, basic numerology. Now, say for example, you live in a house number which has a lot of Sun and Saturn energy, which is say, a number 1 and 8. So what's going to happen here? It's a very intense combination, and it's going to bring in things like cuts, injuries, accidents, family court, or legal trouble, separation, divorce. So you have a real estate broker who kind of puts you into this deal here, not understanding or realizing. Like most realtors I know today do not understand this at all. And then you get into a transaction, and he makes his 2%, and you are stuck with the lemon. That would happen all the time.
So what do you do if somebody has the wrong home number, or you think how do you correct that?
There's something called as patching. And number patching is something that I've researched over the last 20 years. So what we do is we look at the basic date of births, and based on that, we come onto a basic energy that's working with the people, the occupants of the house. And then we use a tiny number, a smaller number that is tinier than the existing number to patch the energy.
I noticed that, just a tiny little number you put there in the front.
That's right.
Okay.
So the idea is to make the energy flow better. So
and you feel that as a real estate broker, you feel that this works and it does help your clients.
Oh, absolutely. I've tried this for many years, and it works. It's very powerful. Instead of telling people, most people, Greg, don't have good numbers. So what do we tell them? Go sell your houses? No, we don't do that. Of course, in some cases, when they're very negative, you suggest, oh, well, it's a good idea to move. But otherwise, patching is a great solution. Now,
can it ever change? I mean, if you have a good number, but then the real estate market gets bad, do you need to change the number, or is it always a good number, or how does that work?
Yeah, see, what happens is you look at your date of birth, and from your date of birth you derive your basic energy. And if you are living in a good number, it wouldn't matter. The market can go up and down. You will always have that good luck standing on the door. Opportunities for you will always be there. But if you are living in a difficult number and the market goes down, it's going to be a huge challenge for you.
Well, because this is a non-traditional approach, as I said at the beginning, do you find people are skeptical, or what do you say to people who aren't sure that this works?
It's interesting. I'm on many radio stations on a daily basis, over hundreds of stations, and each time on the air, all the lines are lit up, and people want to know how and why and number patching. So it's pretty tested now. It's been around for 5 years now, and
no matter what, I mean, it's just interesting as part of the psychology of the market, number one, because I think of something I was reading the other day about the fact that most high-rises don't have the 13th floor.
That's true.
Just because they know, I mean, maybe some people are, if you want to say superstitious or feel it's a bad number, but Also, they know that people, from a business point of view, won't want to rent the 13th floor or stay on the 13th floor in a hotel, so they just bypass the 13th floor.
Yeah, let me tell you
So
what that
there's
is.
a practical.
Yes, so 13 actually is 1 and 3 is Sun and Jupiter energy. Whenever these two planets come together, they kind of collide. It's like two captains in one ship, and it creates a lot of stress. So, for example, if you live in a house number 103 or 130 with zeros and amplifier, you'd be ready to have this big hole in your bag. Your money is going to go down the drain, and then there's something from the back door, which is sickness. Yeah, I've researched this number for a long time. Typically, it's cancer that walks from the back door all the time. It's tested. I've checked this out for many years.
So what do you do about that? How do you fix that situation?
For a home like that, I suggest it's a good idea to make a change, to move, Patch it, of course, we use a number and patch it, shift the energy, but also suggest, why don't you, move or,
Move, wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, but any final words of advice for people, what they should be aware of for numbers in their houses?
Yeah, so when you go for a transaction, and don't rush it, and try to understand the energy, check the house and look at the number besides other things, and then make a very informed decision. And that'll be good for them in the long run.
Well, thank you very much, Jesse, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jesse Kalsi, real estate broker. The book is The Power of Home Numbers. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.